Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank the Secretary for the opportunity to comment on the request of Russell Biomass, LLC for a comprehensive exemption from the zoning bylaw requirement of the town of Russell. My name is Richard K. Sullivan Jr. I reside at 29 Wildflower Circle in the city of Westfield. For those in the audience, I was not the superintendent of schools some years ago. That was my father, but he does remind you that a word to the wise is sufficient. I am, however, the mayor of the city of Westfield, which not only shares a border with the town of Russell, but we are downriver, downwind, share the roads, and share, in this particular case, the transmission lines. And the city of Westfield officials have been deluged with calls, presentations, requests from both parties representing both sides of the issue of the project. And towards that end, I do need to recognize the fact that we have six city councilors from the city of Westfield here this evening, some of whom may speak, but others I know are not going to. Councilor Swords, Adams, Councilors Miller, O'Connell, Councilors Onifrey, and Councilor Russell. So you can see that the impact that this project proposal has had on the city of Westfield. And we realize that the proponents of the project are going to present information portraying this project providing great public benefits, while the opponents of the projects will counter that evidence and will also be concerned about the serious environmental impacts that may occur as a result of this project. And at this time, I can honestly say that I am neither in favor of nor in opposition to this project. The reason for this is because we have not received enough information on the proposal to make an educated and informed decision. Yes. And that's the point of my objection to the request that is the subject of this hearing and is also the subject of the petition that is currently pending before the Department of Telecommunications and Energy. I understand that the State Zoning Act does allow for DTE to exempt public service corporations from particular aspects of the local zoning ordinance and bylaws, and that it is only where the DTE specifically determines the exemptions required and finds that the present or proposed use of the land or structure is reasonably necessary for the convenience of the welfare of the public. And it would appear, therefore, necessary that we define what the public welfare and interests are that are being considered. On the one hand, there is the general public of the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts who would benefit presumably from increased power generating, resulting in greater energy supply and perhaps lower rates. On the other hand, there's the local public who, while they would also share in these benefits, would also be the ones who feel the greatest impacts from the actual operation of the facility and from the generation of this power. On December 22nd, 1975, Chapter 808 of the Acts of 1975 were signed into law. This was known as the Zoning Act. Prior to adoption of the Zoning Act, the purpose of zoning was limited to promoting the health, safety, convenience, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of a city or town. In 1975, the adoption of the Zoning Acts, these purposes and objectives were expanded to include, among other things, providing adequate air and light, facilitating the adequate provisions of transportation, water supply, drainage, sewer, schools, parks and open space, and other public requirements, conserving the value of land and buildings, including the conservation of natural resources, and the prevention of blight and pollution of the environment, encouraging the most appropriate uses of land throughout the city or town, including consideration and recommendations of a master plan if adopted by the local planning board, and the comprehensive plan, if any, as adopted by the regional planning agency. And finally, preserving and increasing amenities as promulgated by the regulations to fulfill these objectives. All of these purposes and objects fall under the premise of home rule, allowing local communities to plan for themselves by adopting regulations, guiding their growth, and regulating their projects. I do not believe that it was the intent of the Zoning Act, nor envisioned that the comprehensive or total exemption from local zoning granted for public service corporations. While the statute does permit some exemptions for such entities, it specifically states that they may be exempt, quote, with emphasis added, in particular respects from the operations of a zoning ordinance or bylaw. I believe that the wholesale waiver of a zoning requirement as requested by the application before you is neither consistent with the letter of nor consistent with the spirit of the section and chapter quoted earlier by the board, section 3 of chapter 40A, nor is it in the best interest of the project, nor is it in the best interest of the communities in which this is to be located. This is a major project that will have major impacts, presumably both positive and negative in our communities. I believe that in order for this project to have a fair and open review and to assure that all the parties' interests have been fully taken into consideration, that all permits, processes, and hearings, whether they be local, state, or federal, whether they be compliance with local zoning or environmental review procedures, that they be applied for, conducted by, and complied with. I believe that granting the blanket comprehensive exemption as requested by the applicants tonight would set a dangerous precedent for all communities across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in terms of providing local input for major projects and requiring compliance with local zoning regulations. I do not feel that a local bylaw adopted by the community of Russell should be circumvented, just as I feel that the ordinance of my community should also not be circumvented. And my community will be next, as a portion of this project does extend into it, as is referenced by the application before you. This application is not comparable to other comprehensive exemptions that have been approved by DTE, where the existing utility systems were already in violations of their supply and distribution guidelines and could result in extended outages for the service areas for which they serve. Relative to this project, there are no time-sensitive needs for a comprehensive exemption. This is a brand new facility that is still in its infancy of conception. There is nothing of a time-sensitive nature that would warrant the streamlining or the fast-tracking of this process, nor a circumvention of a careful and complete evaluation of this project by the local community. While I know that petitions for comprehensive zoning are infrequently granted by DTE, I also acknowledge and understand that they may be appropriate in some circumstances. I do not believe that this application represents one of those circumstances. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to address.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sullivan. Are there any other state or local officials? Yes, sir.